good evening, or good afternoon, or wherever you're dialing in from. I just want to thank you all for joining me today. It's a first time that we're trying this format, and I'm super excited. So this is really our kickoff session, if you will, for the SEC Online, which is going to be a series of technical talks and technical discussions. I'll talk more about that in the format of it shortly. But I thought it would be a good idea to discuss and maybe have at the end of it, maybe have an exchange, not so much as a Q&A, but a short exchange to talk about what exactly does that mean for us to have an engineering culture. I remember joining the company over a year ago, and I have the sense that almost everybody had a certain value system towards engineering, had a certain appreciation, if you will, towards engineering in this company. And that's really the core that connects us. So I did a research, and I did some studying and talked to various CTOs in different companies, well-known companies. And I started to write down and actually have a couple of town hall to discuss this topic with various people. And what I found out is that it is important for us to talk about this topic because this is really what connects us. But before we start, maybe it's important for us to remember and look at what exactly is a company. I think this question is easy for us to forget. But what a company is, if you looked at it in the most simplistic form, it's really a group of people that has a certain common goal in mind. Whether that common goal could be to achieve something or to go towards a certain direction. The word originates from a French word, I believe, that really means, it was mostly a military word again, that mostly means, a group, a small group, brigade that actually, goes toward a certain direction. But I think it has a bigger meaning, which is what exactly does, a group of people want to accomplish? Why did this group of people get together? And of course, now I think a lot of commercial sense and a lot of the complexities that start to pile on top of it, and it makes it's much more complicated now. But I think this still stands, which is we are a group of people together, going towards the same goal, and it's not easy to remember what that same goal is sometimes, and we tend to forget, and then we start to deal with day in, day out. And I'm sure you're super busy in a day-to-day work, and you tend to lose that sight, just like I do, about what exactly are we trying to go towards and achieve. So I think if you looked at a company as a stream, and it's very much that way, honestly, if I look at it, it's a stream that has various different functions, which is it has to connect with people. It has to be able to find people who needs it, right? If nobody needs the function, if nobody needs the company, then there is absolutely no point to it. So somehow it needs to be able to connect to the people, which is, in general, how people would find out about this company. Then it has to have a fair way to exchange, which is, okay, so now people know about us, people can connect to us, and we know about the people or other companies. How do we exchange? Right? It's not like in the old days where, we just exchange for goods anymore, but there has to be a monetary way, a monetization path. Somehow we can figure out a right way to exchange. All that is important, but at the end of the day, you have to be able to deliver what you produce. And every company produces something. So if you look at these three functions of a company, there are obviously other important functions of the company too, but if you look at these three functions as a stream of what that company does, they map to modern words. And these words are, marketing, which is, how would people actually find out about us? How do we actually reach the customers? Sales, which is how would our customer and us, how would we actually exchange and figure out what is the fair exchange between the two groups? We give you goods, you give us money. What is that exchange? And then there is production, right? Which is, our delivery, what we produce, our software that we produce. Now, if you look at this stream, and it's not just between the functions, but a company doesn't work. Maybe a very small company might work, but a company does not work if everybody is giving strict direction. So everybody has to make their own decisions, right? You have to make your own decisions every day. I have to make our own decisions every day. We all do. And that's just a given fact. There's no way that somebody could tell me that or give me a book that would tell me exactly what I need to do to decide every single day. That's not going to happen. So every single day, like this morning, I have to decide, what to talk about today, and I'm sure you're going to have many decisions like that. However, if everybody just decides on things based on an abstract idea and, what is good on the same, on that particular day, if you, I don't know if you're into fluid dynamics, but if you looked at that, basically you would have, very little yield. And this is exactly what turbulence, chaotic, friction, and, low yield comes from, which is if everybody just basically decide on certain things and go this way, go that way, and so on, then it's going to produce a very, very low yield. It's going to produce a lot of turbulence, and the system is not going to run smoothly. However, if there's certain things, and in fact, I would talk more about this, but if there's a certain thing that would actually somehow, like an aura, somehow that actually groups us together, now it's never going to be able to control. It's not meant to control. That's not what it is. But if something that's like a gravity that somehow gradually pulls us together, that connects us together, and it's still not going to be 100% because there has to be freedom. There has to be some form of autonomy. There has to be some form of risk-taking and experimentation and try. So some of the places would not be 100% aligned. But if there's a certain gravity that pulls everybody together, this sets a certain standard, if you will, that sets a certain value system, then maybe we could actually be much more aligned towards what this common goal is, and the yield would be higher. Now, if you looked at the word culture, what the word culture really means is very much this, which is it's a common standard, an understanding of what is relatively good, bad, and acceptable. For example, in certain parts of the country, for example, going out in the street without a shirt is perfectly acceptable. That's just, everybody says that's fine. But if you go to certain parts of the place and everybody has a certain value system that says, no, that's not acceptable. Or using certain words, it's acceptable, versus if you go to another culture, another location, using those words, it's not acceptable. So what culture really is giving us a common system, a common value system to say what is good and what is bad. For example, is one tech stack good, one tech stack bad? Should I use C? Should I use C++? That's even more further down the pipe. If I should use Git and SVN, that's more technical, but at the same time, we kind of had that feeling that we group together and say, well, this is where the market is going towards. We feel that this is good engineering versus something that's bad engineering. So there is this value system, and that's really what culture is. So I kind of jump ahead a little bit. So then what exactly is a company culture? What is an engineering culture? I'm sorry. I think an engineering culture, just mapped to what I said previously, it's a common understanding between engineers, between us, and it's also an encouragement, it's a cultivation of what is good for purposeful engineering. Meaning that it's something that we agreed that this is good, as we know, what is good right now at this point for engineering, but it's working towards a goal. It's working towards something that's important, which is the business goal, the company's goal. But in general, for example, I think we all, tend to agree that, shorter iteration, it's helpful, right? We all tend to agree that, CI/CD is helpful. Now, it doesn't mean that it applies to everything. But there is an idea that, modular design is helpful. We know that's, but you see, none of these things are black and white. And that's the beauty of it. You're never going to be able to stand up, in front of everybody else and say, you have to do X, Y, Z. That's the only way. You never get that, right? Maybe you get it once or twice, but it's very, very seldom. It's not so much about black and white. It's more about a value system that we share together. And especially for engineering, and I'll talk more about that, I think we have to make sure that engineers, you and I think we're all the same way, which is we need a certain autonomy. We need certain ways that we can actually stay creative. So do we really need this? Do we need to talk about this? I think so. I think so. I think, very honestly, I think this is what we do. This is exactly what we do, right, between us engineers. We talk about engineering, we talk about coding, we care about it, we discuss, we argue, we debate. Defining this value system is a big part of what we do today. I don't have to say it, honestly. I'm really just putting us, on that point again and just, bringing this out as a discussion. But this is what we do already. And this is, as I said before, our value system. This is really, when we talk about things, I'm sure you do the same thing. When somebody designed a certain system that was, very lot of linear coding, no modularity, no factorization, no design or architecture whatsoever, just klooched together. The code wasn't, written properly. There was no indentation all over the place. We have a value system. We look at those guys and say, hey, guys, come on. This is not the right way to do it. So this is our value system. This is how others see us also. And this is also very important. I think we tend to forget. The reason why, if you talk to, I would say almost all of our customers, there's no question that when they look to us and they say, yep, those are the good engineering folks, right? They didn't say that, we're the good, I'm sure that our sales department doing a good job and marketing department great job, but the first thing that comes to their mind is that, yep, those are the good engineers. I've never heard anybody that say anything otherwise than the first thing that, when I talk to them. They always say, yep, those are the good engineers. So that is us. This is EPAM. So that's exactly who we are. But I think this last point, I think it's actually much more important, which is this is really what connects us. This is really why we're all in this company, I think, because we know that this is an engineering company. I've been lucky enough to be in a few very engineering-focused companies. Now, when I say engineering-focused, I don't mean engineers doing this, engineering work for the sake of just engineering. It's very important that if you go back to what my slide says previously, is purposeful engineering, meaning that there has to be a meaning. There has to be business sense to it. But with that said, I think it's important to remember that what connects us is that we're engineers, right? Within at least the production side, we're engineers, and this is what we do. So I talked to a lot of people. I asked myself first. I was on the plane, and I closed everything down, and I opened up VI, and I looked at, I wrote down a bunch of things, of what do I think if, what would I need as an engineer from the environment? What, as I said before, I worked in a couple of engineering company that I'm very happy with, and I asked myself, what do I like about them? What I don't like about them as an engineer? What do I really need from them? It's a long list. And to make this list even longer, I actually did a couple of town halls, and excuse me, and I had a couple of long exchanges with different teams in Budapest and another location in Minsk and Kiev, and I came up with a long list. I'll go through this list, very briefly, but a lot of these things I actually want to come back and have a longer discussion around and talk to you about. I think it's important for us to talk about these things. And to do something about them, especially if you looked at, and some of these things might be a little controversial, but I think it's important to talk about them. Create and solve problems. I think that's the core of what I like to do. I think from a lot of my friends in engineering and people I talk to, it's the same thing. We really need to. We want to stay creative. There's something about being creative, creating things and solving problems. Creating things doesn't mean writing things from scratch all the time. It just means putting your ideas, your ideas into, and formalizing it, putting it into code and putting it into applications and systems and so on. But we do really need that, creative side. I think without that, this is not us. And this is really what people talk about in EPAM also, which is they say that EPAM, for whatever the problem is, it could be from the outside look like the most mundane thing possible. but we try to find a smart way to solve it. Good challenges. I think we can all agree to that. You know, very few people would actually want to say, I want to solve the same problem again and again and again and again. You want to be challenged. And it has to be a reasonable challenge, so it's not too far that, you know, which frustrates you, but at the same time, you need a challenge. We need to know the mission and why, right? So why are we doing this? You know, you hear a lot of this talk about PDS 2.0, which I would come back and talk more about. Art did a wonderful session last week on PDS 2.0, and I know Vic did the same thing, and a couple of weeks ago, and I will talk about that as well. We need to know why, and we need to know what is that mission, and we need to stay flexible and to understand exactly what that mission is so that we can go down, as I said before, towards the same direction. Get things done. Engineers are doers. We're not called, you know, we are computer scientists in many ways, but engineers mean something specific, I think, which is that we get things done. We're not sitting and building everything on paper. That's not what we are. We build things. So we have to sense that we need to get things done. When the code's not compiling, I don't care how pretty it is, I don't think we're going to be happy. If nobody's using that code, I don't think we're going to be happy. So I think that's important. Frank communication, right? This is we've been trying this, you know, very hard. I hope you start to see this. But, you know, having very, very close, you know, communication with everybody, I think it's very important. A technical management team, when I say technical, I don't mean everybody could write code. But I do hope that we have more and more people who can write code. But in general, I think it's important for management, no matter how high level, to have an appreciation and understanding of the importance of technology. The management team who does not understand how important technology is, I don't think it's fit for an engineering company. And I can guarantee you, my peers, well, I code every day, but I can guarantee you that my peers has that nature, and I want to see that throughout the whole company. An opportunity to learn, to be better, to excel, right? A brand prestige is important. I asked the team, and they said, yep, it's important, when they looked at other people working for the company. So I think the branding part is important, and you'll hear more about that soon enough. But it's important to feel like you're working for a successful company, and I hope you do. But there's more to be done, I think. And a team. Nobody could do this alone. It's not possible. You know, unfortunately now, most of the time, you know, when I do development, it's yes, I'm physically alone, but I do have a team in open source. I do have a team somewhere else that I work with them. And so I do have exchange, and it goes back to exchange, really, you know, to the point below. And quality, do good work. We said that before. I talked about that before, but in general, what you want to build, obviously you want people to look at it as, you know, wow, this is quality work. Right? So it's important for us to build something of quality. Nobody's happy, I think, if they keep cranking out. Now, there's no way of avoiding it. You're going to have deadlines sometimes. You're going to have to push out some code that you're not, and you're never going to be 100% okay with the code, but at least you get to the 80%. You're saying, okay, 80%, this is good work. This is not sloppy work, and you push it out. Everybody wants that. If you can't do that this iteration, the next one. If you can't do that for this release, the next one. But you need to get some quality work out there. I think it's important. To share and exchange, to work with other people, going back to that teamwork. Autonomy and discipline. I put these two together for a purpose. Some people said that engineers are not disciplined people. We're kind of, you know, we're kind of prima donnas sometimes and so on. So I think they're absolutely wrong. I think engineering requires discipline, strong discipline. The discipline doesn't mean, you know, 9 to 5 kind of discipline and just, you know, check mark and so on. Discipline is it's actually much more on a commitment. For example, when you say you're going to check in code, that you actually compile it before you check it in, or you're going to do your pre-commit checks before you do it, right? Because everybody else relies on it. When you put something out and you push a label out to QA and say, here's a module, you can push it out to the SIT environment to test it, you promise that you're actually going to do a certain set of exit criteria before that you do it. Without that, it's really disrespectful for everybody else. So that discipline is really your show to respect, the seriousness that you're working with other people. So the discipline is important. But at the same time, we're not machines. Engineers are not machines. There's a reason why, and I would debate again and again and again, there's a reason why you would always need people to write code, because no matter what you do, right, code are, they're based on creation. It's a creative work. You need that person to have a certain amount of autonomy to make his own decision to a certain degree. Of course, I'm not talking about like changing everything from top to bottom, but still, you need a certain room that you can actually have for autonomy. Good lean processes. I think we all agree to this one, and the tooling around automation. We don't like mundane work. We talked about creative work. I think we don't. I can speak for myself and a lot of people I know. We want to automate things because who wants to go through the same thing again and again and again? We want to spend more time creating things. I think Nicholas Worth actually puts it the best. I think he said engineers are the laziest people. He said, and the reason why he said this is because we try to avoid doing the same thing again and again, and that's why we're so creative. We find the best way, the most smartest way to automate things so that we don't have to do it ourselves day in and day out. I tend to agree with him in that sense. And less a-holes, excuse the language, but I think we can all agree to that. It could be the most interesting project, but if we have a lot of people that's just difficult to work with, impossible to work with, it kills the culture. So now, this is the perfect world. I'm not saying that we have all of this. I'm not saying anybody has all of this. Some people have more, some people have less. But I just want to say that this is, it's important to list these things out and look at, what we can have and what we cannot have today and what we should work towards. So to map to the last part, to reiterate this part, I think it's important to see, what good engineering culture is. And this is all up for discussion, all right? So this is what I've collected, what I feel it's important. But I think the most important thing by far is, and a lot of the CTOs in the Valley agrees with me, is by far the people. It's easy to say this, but what it really means, I think, is talent, which is, really good engineers who cares about engineering. Passion. No matter what you do, I don't care. Some people say this work is interesting, some people it's that. If you find passion, you will find a better way to do it. I think that's important. And a team spirit, which is, yes, everybody wants to win. Everybody wants to be the star, but at the same time, you're not going to do that in the expense of the whole team, meaning that you want to bring the whole team together and win together, not you win, but everybody else would lose. That's not the right attitude. Logics and reasons first. This is very interesting. I had a couple of long debates with a few people, a few friends, and these guys are real thinkers. They run circles around me, and we kept going around a piece of paper and say, what does that really mean for a good company, and what does that really mean for great engineering company, and we, a lot of the things that I felt that for me I didn't like, and for a lot of my friends they didn't like, and in engineering is when decisions were made not based on logic, not based on, but it's based on other things. And so I think it's important to focus on logics and reasons for decision making first. I can talk day and night about this point, but it's actually much deeper than that. A good, lean, robust, agile, and iterative process. I think we can agree to that, right? I'm not saying that everything has to be moved away from waterfall. There is a place for waterfall. But I think it's important to also know that I think it's also important to understand that what we're going towards now is a much more fluid system, as I said before, like a stream. And I'll talk more about that maybe in another session about how I see CI/CD and software delivery becomes a stream of work, not so much of throwing over the fence. Clear direction and alignment business. We talked about this. Encouraging learning and trying new things. It's very important. It's very, very important to be able to encourage people to learn and try new things. An environment where an engineer feels that where he just needs to repeat the same thing again and again and again, I think it's not the best idea. No matter what the situation is, we should always try to see we can actually do better. Possibilities and room for innovation, right? To create. Maybe I'm running an automation test script. Is there a way that I can pull out that automation, and make it into a more modular way? Or it doesn't need to be modular, but at the same time, maybe there is a different way to actually tackle the same problem. I can actually see more. I can find out more. Frank communication is very important for engineering culture. Thought leadership, just by itself, would take another session altogether. But this, in general, means that we know what's the latest, what's the best out there. We're not in a vacuum. Level autonomy, I talked about, but again, it's important to understand the level, right? We all have limitations. We all have rules that we play by, but there has to be some finer room, small room that we can innovate. Brand prestige we talked about, and get things done. Now, each one of these I would like to come back and talk more about and have a discussion with you all, but I think today it's important because this is a kickoff for the SEC Online. I think it's important to look at just one section of it. If you looked at the middle section, those things, I'm not saying they address 100% of it, but I want to say what these things are really built for. If you looked at the engineering conference, what we're doing now, the engineering conference online, the SEC Online, the open town halls that we've been having with the executive teams, excuse me, and the regional meetups that we're starting to have. If you look at these things that we're trying to do, if you ask me why am I pushing so hard for these things, is honestly to address the middle part. We are doing other things to address the other part as well, but this middle part, it's what we're talking about today, if you will. And I promise I'll come back and talk about the other part also. If you look at the engineering conference, so we started this new idea about a year ago where instead of one big conference, we have these smaller conferences, physically smaller, if you will, but they rotate from one office to another office. So like, the first block there, I'm trying to visualize it. The first one might be the one in Kiev. The second one might be the one in Minsk. Then the third one might be the one. So we have this once every season. And it was good. It was actually very good because it rotates among the office. GDO and CTO office work together on it. So there's participation from both sides of it. The local office was extremely engaged. So that was very, very good. But if you looked at the pulse of activity, it's still missing something. What's happening is you get everybody very excited, get on all the sessions, and then you have this big drop because everybody was tired. Then you go, wait, 3 months, and then everybody goes up again, and then you drop, and then people get tired. There is still something that's missing where, in between the sessions, there is really nothing. In between the sessions, people either forget, people would have to start all over again, and as the whole, I think there was sort of a theme that I'm talking about today where if you look at the flow seems to be broken. Now, we started this last time, and I'm going to try to keep pushing forward. So SEC was not meant to be just people talking, and so we added these workshops. These are training sessions and hands-on sessions and workshops for the week before the SECs. So the 1 week before SEC, we have these hands-on training. So we started this last time in Budapest. It was very well received. And basically what they are is, they have a whole week of training. And then you go into SEC. And even during SEC, you also have hands-on training. Because I never wanted SEC to be just a bunch of people talking. I've always wanted to be somewhere that people can actually go in and code. They can go and program. They can go and learn things. They can go and test things out. They can go and test ideas out. They can go and learn, figure out what is the latest and greatest on Agile or test it out to see if, jam session actually works. So, things like that. So we started adding these workshops, which is good, and it generates a certain pulse again, and it was very helpful. You see that little bump right before the SEC was actually very important because it almost like prepare people for the SEC. Then when they get into the SEC, they're much more prepared for it. They're like, this is what we're talking about because they're all themed together. They have the whole thing, theme, and it kind of makes a lot more sense, but there's still more, right? So we created more of a depth. We have the sessions, we have the SEC, we have the sessions before it, and then now what we're trying to do is what we would like to do is have a continuity, really have this connection throughout the whole year. Because it's not a festival, right? It's not like engineering is, as I said before, what we do. it's not like that, hey, once a year we come together and let's celebrate. It's not about that. It's much more about, continuous learning and experimentation and finding out what's the latest, what's new. So now with all the material that we have, that we actually couldn't fit into SEC, with all the material that people were adding again and again and again, we have more people that have ideas than we can fit into the SECs and so on. How can we use this? And so the whole SEC online concept was exactly for that, which is you see these little circles in between, so that there was a connection, there was a stream, that throughout the whole year you would continuously be able to discuss and exchange and connect with people. But there was also a bigger, actually there was another point behind it. Remember that these are all done for you guys, for me as well. I enjoy for all the engineers and for the technical folks specifically, but everybody else too. But if you looked at it, the engineers serves two things: the speakers and the participants. The participant, of course, they exchange and they learn and brainstorm and everything. The speakers have to prepare themselves and say, until you know actually what you need to, how to talk about certain things, I was told that you really don't have it, meaning that until you can actually tell people how to do it, maybe you have not mastered it yet. So I think it's important for us to have these speakers. This now creates a stream of opportunities for people to speak so that, everybody could try to speak. Everybody has something to say, should be able to give it a forum to say it and try it out, and other people can learn from it, no matter how niche it is, no matter how general it is. So I think that's very, very important. But it also allows, I think, the competency centers, the GDO, and the tech communities to bind these together, right? So you're going to start to see more and more involvement from the competency centers themselves, so that the heads, the participants, the delegates, and everybody will start to be more involved in these sessions. You can hear from them more. You can understand what they're looking for. You can understand what they're pushing for. And again, going back to that same point, to have much more of a connectivity. So coming back to what is SEC Online, right? So these are online webinars, as we have today, and I'm looking forward to many, many more. We actually have a backlog for the next 5, 6, or I think maybe more sessions already. And these sessions are technical. I want them to be technical. And with internal speakers so far, we might invite external speakers as well, as we do in SEC Live. But on online version, I want to give more opportunities for internal speakers to speak. And the different formats are typical presentations like this one. I want to see tutorials. And in fact, we have panel discussions. So these will be very much like, on TV, where you have like 5 or 6 people dialing into Skype or whatever connection, and then, you would have an online panel discussion. And I want to try that as well. And in fact, we're going to have one coming up. I think the third session, not just the first one, the second one, we have a very good one coming up. And then a third one that's coming up would be a panel discussion. I'll talk about the second one. I think Jeff Galper is going to do the second one, and Lena Schechter is going to do the third one, the panel discussion for me. These are broadcasted live. Obviously, that's how we're connected. We have a backlog of speakers. And I want you listening, whoever you are, please, I want you to be one of the speakers in the future as well. And this is a chance for both new speakers and, experienced speakers. We'll welcome all kinds of topics. And this is, I said this before, this is really, I don't know how to make this point more clear, but you like it, you don't like it, you appreciate it, you don't appreciate it, you find it useful, you don't find it useful. You could be either way. But what's important is this is not, and you have to remember that we're doing this work, really for you. This is really for the engineers, for the company, and so I really would like to ask you for your participation. So it could be just listening. I really want you to try to speak. It's really important for us to try to speak. Ask questions, right? Don't be passive. Please be active. I know we're super busy. I cannot ask more of you, but it's important for us to also volunteer. If you don't like something, stand up and fix it. Work with other people to try to fix it. But and if you like it, do more about it. Help and share a hand and say let me help you with that as well. We need more people to join, because this is not this is something that would only get better if we have more and more people joining together. And I'm going to make one more point about this. So it's the title sounds funny, but we really all need to speak. I think speaking is a very important thing. But if you look at these different aspects of it, the company needs leaders, and a core aspect of leadership, I think any good leaders would tell you, is communication skill. Communication doesn't mean just public speaking in general, but it really means how do you turn an idea. First of all, you have to conceptualize the idea. A lot of people think that communication really just means, well, you could talk. And I think it's important for us to all try it, for us to all practice it. I need a lot of help with it. I need a lot of practice with it. I'm not good at it. So I think it's important for us all to try, because it's important to see that when you try to communicate, you're really forcing yourself to understand the concept. You're forcing yourself to have a clear idea of what the concept is. And then you go beyond that by actually speaking it, by saying it. That goes to another filter system, which is how would you visualize it for other people? How would you explain to other people? Because whatever words you have in your mind might not mean anything to other people. So it's really an exercise to allow you to exchange with other people. And that's why it's so important for leadership, for customer engagement. It's really important for us to communicate with our customers, because, and I'm not talking about selling more stuff here. I'm talking about for us to be able to actually do more interesting work, to have more good work, to have more high-level discussions with the customer. It's really important for us to be able to communicate, because otherwise, if we're passive, if we cannot communicate with them, we're always going to be getting the tail end of the work. So it's important for us to be able to communicate. And same thing, market visibility. For us to be able to speak in public forum, my hope is that we start to speak at engineering conferences, internal with the SEC Online first, then engineering conference, then your very next step as a speaker is then you would go out and represent a company and speak in public. When you start to speak in public, that's when you start to get people challenging you and discussing with you. That's when the company can learn from you as well, from exchanging from the outside. And that was what I was hoping for, which is you would all become little tentacles, if you will, to go out to the outside market and start pulling in a lot of the knowledge, pulling it back into this company so we can become better and better and better, right? And the last part is, I think, we should all start with SEC Online, like what I'm trying today. I'm starting it here, and we can move to meetups and have different discussion meetups. If you're interested in organizing meetups, come contact us. And then, go to SEC Live, and then maybe beyond to go to an external session as well. So I know I went way over. I apologize. I got a little too excited, as I always do. But it's an important topic to me, and it's also a kickoff for this session. So I kind of pull two different topics, that's aligned together. But I think it's very important for us to look at what do we think is engineering culture, and what responsibility do we have for what we call engineering culture within this company, and how can we make it a better environment for everybody else together. So with that, I want to thank you and maybe open up for any comments and discussions online. And you have to forgive me if I don't know how to use some of this interface. I apologize. But so, any questions from the audience? And maybe the organizers could speak up too if there are questions and comments. Are you guys still there? Oh, no, I got no questions. Thank you for the excellent, well, okay, thanks for listening, actually. We have another 10 minutes, so you guys, speak up. Remember what I said about speaking? You guys speak up. Tell me. Engaging. Thanks, Sam. Oh, thank you, Alina. Hackathon training. Oh, well, of course. So Jeff reminded me about hackathon and training. So I will come back and talk about those things, Jeff. But that's a very good point. Let me click on it to see the whole message, etc. I think hackathon training. So the workshop is one type of training, right? So I think the hackathon and the training sessions are other things that really encourage this culture and about the learning part that we talked about. And also the creativity part, hackathons. And also there was one more I would add to it is actually open source. I know we've been pushing forward, but then we've been stumbling a little bit and going back and forth. But I think it's important to also push for open source because open source has a bigger meaning. I'll come back and talk about a session. Maybe maybe Jeff, you and I could talk about it. So maybe we could do a two people session. Let's submit an idea together to talk about those things. But hackathon itself, I think, deserves a session. So we'll talk about that as well. Good question. Thank you. Oh, there's more, Costa. Okay, so they're asking for people to chat. Architecture Excellence Initiative should play a role in this too. Oh, yes. I will have a session on PBS 2.0, and I would explain why, where architecture, solutions architects and enterprise architect would be very, very important and play a role in this. So, but in general, just maybe 2 seconds. The type of engagement that we have, so I think it's really changing, right? So it's morphing to some degree, and if you look at what's really needed for us is really to have a high level of technical discussion with the customers. They're dying for it. They're asking us for it. They're banging down our doors for it, and so we need to have more and more architecture, discussions and architects, and even more consultation type of discussion. And so with that, I think, our type of work, our type of engagement is going to change as well to some degree in some part of it, not all of it. It's never going to be 100%, but to some of it. So, and I think a lot of that depends on an architecture work that we're doing. So we have, for example, just the last 2 weeks, we have 3 customers calling me, and I have to do a technical assessment with them with a couple of architects. So we are doing that stuff. And what's going to come out of it, it's, again, sharing our culture with the customer, which is yes, we think this is what we do very well, and we like this, we care about this. Now the customer asking us to say, can you extend this out to them? So not every customer would do that, but some of them would do. So that's a very good point. Another discussion point. Yuri, how do I apply for participation in SEC on? Oh, good question. So we will send out info. I think Konstantin has actually sent out more information about asking for it. For now, go to these 2 websites. We would have more information shortly about that, and then Costa would actually, he's helping me run the program. If you have topic, just send it directly to me first, and I'll route it to Costa if you don't know Konstantin. Otherwise, if you know Konstantin, he's actually here. Can you raise your hand or do something so that people can actually be aware of you? I don't know the right way to do it, but I think there was a way to raise your hand or something. But in general, I think, for now, that's the simple system. But in general, later on, you can go to these 2 websites. We're turning the sec.epam.com into a generic system called events.epam.com so that all the events would be on there. And then the idea, the hopes is that it will all be self-service, which is you could just go on there and say, I want to speak at this different conference, internal conference, and here's my topic, and it would be submitted to JIRA, and then JIRA would just, directly go into it, and then we would review it, and then come back and talk to you about it. But for now, I think just, contact Costa if you don't mind. That's a very good question. I think the first thing we need to do is persuade regular engineers to get rid of hesitation, asking convenient questions to their superiors. Unfortunately, it's not our culture. Yeah, Dimitri has a very good question. I think you guys see it. I think it's to be able to speak up is not easy. I agree with you, Dimitri, that to encourage engineers, and this is what I'm really asking you to, but it needs more than just me asking you, but everybody needs to start asking questions. I agree. And I don't mean just asking questions by complaining things. We can all complain things, but at the same time, ask 2 questions, if you will. One, what do I think it's not right? That's the first thing. The second, what would I do to make it right? Okay, so, for example, my chair right now, I'm sitting in a chair at home right now talking to you. It is early in the morning and in San Francisco. And what is not right with this chair is actually not very stable. It's rocked back and forth. But is there anything I could do about it? Yes, I can actually adjust it myself. I can actually, there's something to fix. Or no, I cannot do it myself. Somebody else could fix it, but I do know what needs to be fixed. Or I don't know how to fix it. That's okay. But do ask yourself that question, because it helps open up that question even bigger. But I think it's really important, like you said, Dimitro, for us to all actually start working with our managers a little bit more. And if they're not open to it, you need to find a way, to see how you can pull things together and pull people together. But in general, I think we have to have more of a discussion with our management team so that they can understand this better, as you said. As you put it, ask inconvenient questions, which is, I think, what you meant by that, if I understand you correctly, is we need to start asking real questions, hard ones, and because if we don't ask those questions, we're not going to improve. Any mentors for people who wants to speak? I know some people would love to share, but they're just not skilled. Yes, we do have a mentorship program. It's for SEC. And we're going to reuse that process. But I think SEC Online in general, what I would recommend you to do is submit it first. Don't worry about so much whether you can speak or not. Have faith in the system a little bit, which is we will get people to help you learn to speak. I'm doing a presentation. I'm doing a workshop on presentation skills. Not that I'm very good at it, but it's just because I've taken these courses before, so I'm reusing somebody else's material. But I want to share what I've learned from other people. So I'm doing one actually in Minsk in a few weeks for a small group of people. We will continue to do those. I also have a contractor who's actually helping us to do some of the presentation courses. So yes, there will be, if you're committed to speaking, there will be training help, whether it's from paid external source or it's from people like me and other people in the company. And yes, I hope that you would join us because I know you're very good at speaking. So I want you to be one of the mentors. How many times a month will these events? We're looking for, in the beginning, twice a month. Depends on the material. The whole idea is the SEC Online is much less overhead. For people who's actually worked on SEC Live, you know that. It's a lot of work, right? So I can't say enough good things about everybody that joined SEC Live, and some of them are here, so I can't thank you guys enough. It's a lot of work. For SEC Online, it's also a lot of work, but in general, much more scalable, meaning that we could do a lot more of those with a lot less, time and people and so on. So we are planning to do twice a month, and I want to make sure that we keep that momentum first. So it's very dangerous that I don't want this to be exciting in the beginning and do 5 or 6 of them and then disappear. I want them to be more and more and more and more, and so that we can actually have different topics. So it'll be twice a month to start, and then we'll tune it. Alexander, Sam, for your opinion, who is responsible for building, developing, and engineering culture in this company? Ooh, excellent question. I think a good part of it is, first and foremost, my responsibility. I'll be very honest with you. So to ensure, I wouldn't say build because that's very arrogant. The company has an engineering culture before I came. So it will be very arrogant for me to say, oh, yeah, I'm going to build it. It doesn't work that way. The engineering culture, the reason why I did town halls, again, I want to make sure you guys understand. I didn't come up with all the slides, right? The slides the ideas came from you guys on town halls, and I meet up with you people. It came from my friends, the CTOs, and outside of the companies with famous companies. It came from a lot of engineers, right? So I just want to make sure you guys understand that part because, it's important. But I think in general, of course, it's my job to make sure that we do more and more and more work for engineering. You see, there's always going to be a balance. The business folks is always going to be, remember that stream? The business folks will make sure that we have a balance for the sales side, which is the monetization side, and we are responsible for that as well. It's a teamwork, as Arkady would say. We have to work together. We cannot just work in the blind. But the marketing folks are responsible for connecting us. We are responsible for delivery, for quality, for engineering. So we when I say we, is really GDO, you guys, engineers, everybody else in the CTO together. But if there's one person who is, responsible to making sure that we keep pushing, which is we keep talking about this, we keep doing something about it, we keep trying new things, I'm responsible for that, for sure. So, and I can't do it alone. There's no way I could do it alone. And I do need everybody's help on it. I do need everybody to join. In fact, I do need us to work together on it. How does this play into what Ark was telling us last week about the need for technical people who can consult and client, provide solution types? Yeah, it's exactly in line. I was trying to save up more so my next session would be, I wouldn't give away everything about my next session, but it's very much in line with it. It's very much in line with it. It's I'll be frank with you. We're spreading very, very thin on the consultation on the high end type of discussion. When I say high end, I don't mean high in the sense of level. I just means like on a more generic level discussion, an architectural level discussion. So we do need more and more people on that one, and I think it really plays into that, which is this is my hope, right? So I'm giving you 100% transparency. I'm trying to understand, for us to go forward, I want us to have a very proud engineering company. I want, and I think it's very important. But for us to move forward, we need to understand where we are first. And when I start talking to the team and where we are, I have a sense of where things are for different teams and so on. I would never know 100%, but I have a certain sense of where things are to some degree. And I have a sense that if we don't talk about this, if we don't share this, if we don't clearly list things out, it will be always going to be too vague for us to tackle. So now that we've actually had this discussion, I want to have more, but we now kind of know what we need to work towards a little bit, and then we can go forward to that. And then the very next step is how can we actually help the customer to go beyond that as well. So I think it's very much in line with that. Yeah, thanks, Dimitri. I appreciate your time as well. Let's see how much more time do we have. Maybe the organizers. We got 3 minutes, so I'm going to try to ask these quick. I have one question. If you have to work with customers directly, we have to fit the customer corporate culture. What happens if the culture differs? Excellent question, right? So the question was, what happens when a customer culture differs from us? This is where the communication skill is going to come in. This is where a lot of the soft skills is going to come in. I'm not going to tell you it's easy. I have worked with customers constantly, and you do understand that I talk to a lot of customers today, both especially on a technical level, because I do technical evaluation for a lot of projects, easily like 1 to 2 every week and so on. So if you looked at a lot of them, it's almost against the culture, right? Some of them has very rigid culture. Some of them have very good ones. We have good customers. I'm sure I want to make sure we all agree to that. But we have good customers that are very understanding as well. But when their culture collides with ours in a sense of, maybe they believe in, slower movement. We believe in innovation. Maybe they believe in, check marking and so on. When that happens, it's important. This is where conflict resolution needs to come in place. There is no easy answer for that. And I want you, Zoltan, I want you to send me a short email about it, and I mean it. So send me an email with an uppercase subject line on it. I don't want to give it away for everybody to know the trick, but give it to me in uppercase, subject line. I want to have that discussion with you, and maybe we can actually have a session to talk about this, because it's never going to be all peachy. We work with customers, and a lot of what we do is dictated. It's defined by the customer. So how much you can say yes, how much you can say no, how much you should push back. Carl did a very good session about that 2 SECs ago. It's very important to understand that, and it's never black and white, but we have to understand that, because the difference between EPAM and Accenture, Cognizant, and so on is exactly this point, which is how can we, of course, not be arrogant, but at the same time be able to actually tell the customer, you know what, maybe there is a better way to do things, or have compassion to understand maybe in this situation the customer is right. So I think that communication is very, very important, but I want to have that discussion. Maybe we could turn into an online discussion. Maybe you and I could just talk about that online and bring another guy, the account manager, online as well. Okay, so please send me an email. Are there any ideas for merging the lessons learned in project town halls back into company-wide process and maybe even into the culture? Yes, there are ideas. I don't know if there's a process for it, but I think, so we're trying to operationalize some of these. We're trying to make these things repeatable. So we try to make these things more and more. So if I understand your question correctly, we are starting to do these things, across the company now. And I think what we're still not very good at, to be honest with you, is still collecting this. Right now, I have a notepad that connects my notes. I think in general, I think we need to be a little bit better at using our tools in collecting these, and also a little bit better at running the projects. So I think in general, you're going to see that improvement soon, especially in the executive team. But you're going to see that improvement fairly soon. But I think what you said is very important. We have to be able to actually learn from our mistakes and be able to move forward from it. And how do we roll it back in? In my division, in the CTO office, I do have a process for that, if you will, which is, but my office is smaller, so it's easier for me to do with that. I think with that, thank you for all the questions. I appreciate it. These are very good ones, and I would lock them. I want to thank you very much for joining me this morning. I've used up a full hour of your time. I know that it's hard to find an hour for anybody, so I appreciate it. What I ask of you is please, join us and submit your talks. If there are questions on how to submit the talks, put in your subject SEC Online in it. I know I'm flooding my email, but still, just for this time, send it to either Costa to me and say you have your subject and so on. And we will broadcast what is the system. They're working on a system that ties to Jira to be able to submit the topics. But in general, please join them. And again, if people don't show up to these talks, people would give up. We're just going to give up. It's the one reason why we're doing this is same thing for SEC Live. It's for people to join together and discuss. If only 4 or 5 guys join, if only a few people listen in, and it's always the same people listen in, well, we might as well form a little fight club. But it's not going to help the overall company. So we need more and more people to join. So please join us, listen in, and also volunteer to help out. Because I need to hear your voice too. The company would not change if it's always a couple of people's same voice again and again and again. It will only change and improve if everybody has a chance to speak. Okay? So we're trying, and I want to try this with you together. Okay? And again, I want to thank you very much for your time. I really appreciate it. I will talk to you soon. We will have another session coming out in two weeks or so. And then I would have another session coming out afterward as well. So looking forward to see you online and talk to you very soon. Thank you all so much.